What's going on, everybody? We back again, streaming. So, I was given some digital scrolls, and I kind of wanted to go through them. Let me just test my audio, make sure everything's coming through clearly around this sound. Digital scrolls in my Gmail, some documents. I wanted to read them. So just give me 1 second. Mute my mic. All right, so my sound looks clear. So I'm gonna keep the music playing softly behind me. Turn it down a little bit. Maybe like 7 should be good. Okay. All right, let me check one thing. All right. All right. So we live on all platforms. Wow. Okay. All right, let's get it. All right. Go here. So these are some of the scrolls I was given. Wisdom of the knowing ones. I almost want to read that. It's just a random drop. Let me see. Let's try this one. See what they're talking about. Manly P. Hall. Oh wow, yeah. He writes a lot of good books. See what this one's called. The Wisdom of the Knowing Ones examines the relationship of Gnostic mysticism to inner teachings of Plato, Valentinus, Bosden, and spiritual flowering of the ancient Alexandria. If any group which share in the Christian mystery possessed the esoteric secrets of the early church, it was the Gnostics. Let's see. What do the knowers know? Let's go to page 5. What do the knowers know? In December 1945, an Egyptian Arab countryman made a momentous archaeological discovery in Upper Egypt. No one knows precisely where the man Muhammad Ali made his discovery. It appears that he had several reasons for concealing the location of his find. Today, it is generally agreed that the discovery was made somewhere in the vicinity of the present town of Nag Hammadi, near which was located in early Christian times the first and largest of all Christian monastic communities. The compound of Chinabuskian, founded by the sainted Coptic monk Pachomius. Muhammad Ali's discovery consisted of large red earthenware jar containing 3 papyrus books bound in leather. Legend has it that when the jar was broken by the discoverer's mattock, a cloud of golden dust rose in the air and disappeared from the sight, as if the long confined presence had at last found its way into the light of day. The incident of possible synchronistic import signaled the arrival of an era of unprecedented interest in a particular early variety of Christianity known as Gnosticism. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library as the collection of Gnostic treatises became known was followed less than a year later by the unearthing of the Dead Sea Scrolls at Khirbet Qumran in the Holy Land. As the years and decades rolled on, it became increasingly evident that these two archaeological finds were in some way related. One concerned the teachings of early Christian schools of Gnostics, while the other contained the writings of heterodox Jewish mystics of a slightly earlier period, who seemed to have a good deal in common with the Gnostic Christian descendants. The existence of the secret or semi-secret tradition of esoteric religiosity within the Semitic spiritual matrix thus emerged as a very real possibility. It is well known that esoterics in our culture have long believed in the existence of such a secret tradition, groups, and individuals as the Cathars, Rosicrucians, Knights Templars, esoteric Freemasons, and Theosophists often considered themselves as functioning within tradition that could be traced back to the initiates of the Gnostics and the Essenes, as well as the Neoplatonists and the Voluntaries of the Egyptian armies. The late Manly P. Hall, for instance, wrote prolifically and insightfully about the adept tradition in the volumes about the orders of the quest, orders of the Universal Reformation, and orders of the Great Work, and others. While many believe in such tradition, few could point to the precise sources and documentary evidence concerning these Gnostic currents, especially when it came to the teachings and practices of the Gnostics. For over a millennium and a half, the only information available concerning the Gnostics was found in the writings of certain church fathers who wrote polemical treatises against the Gnostics. To gather the accurate information from such sources was highly unlikely. These writers or heresiologists were the very folk who relentlessly attacked and ultimately incited representation of the Gnostics. They assailed and ridiculed and greatly distorted the message of the Gnostics teachers and making them appear as fools and knaves of the invariable reprehensible kind. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries and thereafter, a small number of original documents of Gnostic provenance and appeared in Europe, having been brought there by travelers from the Middle East. By the end of the 19th century, the few now available Gnostic documents impelled many scholars to abandon reliance on the biased heresiological sources which were considered normative earlier. Books such as those by the German scholars von Harnack, Richard Reitzenstein, and Walter Bauer, and the English and French colleagues brought about a change in agnostic studies. Neither were the members of esoteric orders and societies idle at this time. Yep, I heard about her. Madame Blavatsky and her brilliant pupil G.R.S. Mead did much to stimulate the enthusiastic interest of in the Gnostics Church, which in several variants continues in the present day. 1 second. However, none of the aforementioned could rival the coming of the Nag Hammadi Library in its aftermath. 1 second, y'all. However, none of the aforementioned could rival the Nag Hammadi Library in its aftermath. In a new epoch of research, sparkled by the wealth of documents, came to extend gradually far beyond the halls of academia. At the turn of the 20th century and 21st century, we find novels and works of popular scholarships, science fiction, magazine articles, and web pages on the internet in considerably profusion proliferating in the public and engendering further interest in agnosticism. It's high time, therefore, that we all inquire into the substance of the teachings and practices of the Gnostics. So the knowers in their knowledge. 1 second. Until comparatively recently, few people were familiar with the word Gnostic. A rather large number was acquainted with its anatomy. A Gnostic, both are derived from the Greek word gnosis, usually translated as knowledge. An agnostic is thus a non-knower, one who denies all knowledge of ultimate realities, while a Gnostic is one who professes knowledge of such things. One needs to keep in mind, however, that the gnosis is not primarily rational knowledge. It is little to do with philosophical reasoning, and even less is it associated with such matters as our contemporary computer-related obsession with access to data. Elaine Pagels, authors of the splendid work The Gnostic Gospels, translates the term gnosis as used by the Gnostics as insight, a term denoting both physical, psychological, and metaphysical cognition arrived at intuitively. Contemporary scholarship holds that what we call agnosticism is a diverse movement showing many complex characteristics. Yet, it is quite evident that this wealth of diversity in myth, teaching, and perhaps in practice possesses an undeniable central core. While there may have been numerous Gnostic teachers in schools, that does not mitigate against the fact that there was one Gnosticism which united the various Gnostic orientations was more important than what divided them. It is important to keep in mind that one of the uniting factors was that a common dedication to the founder of the Christian tradition, Jesus Christ, For the sake of clarity, it is useful to confine the term Gnostic to the kind of person we see in the Nag Hammadi writings, a Christian, albeit a singularity, creative and heterodox kind, especially when compared with Christians of so-called mainstream orthodoxy. It is true that the term gnosis and much of the basic Gnostic views of reality were shared by people who were Christians, but these pagan Gnostics should properly be called Hermeticists, for they employed the figure of the Greco-Egyptian Hermes as their savior, very much like the Christian Gnostics were to do with Jesus. It is also legitimate to speak of something that Gershon Sholem has tentatively described as Jewish Gnosticism, but the accurate name for its earlier development may be the Essene and the Merkaba mysticism, and for its later manifestation, one may properly use the term Kabbalah. An important question that is in need to answer is, how did Gnostics come in their unique and usual worldview? In the past, it was customary to seek the origins of the Gnosticism and objective external influences and transmissions. The contemporary view is rather different from this. The British scholar E.R. Dodds has suggested as long as 40 years ago that the writings of the Gnostics derived from mystical experience. The great philosopher C.G. Jung has made the same suggestion, and following his lead, the Dutch scholar Gauss Kussebel proposed that the Gnosticism originated in the experience of the ontological self, a process that will appear both physical, psychological, and mystical. This experience, wrote Crispell, does not lend itself to prosaic or dogmatic description and definition. Rather, it may be projected outward in the form of mystical, inspired religious mythology. It is without doubt that the majority of the Gnostic writings bear the character of such inspired mythology in the wake of the work of several great scholars of mythology in our day. People have to come to myths in much more positive light than they have been in the case earlier once it was. The wisdom of the knowing ones. Let's see. So that was some of the wisdom of the knowing ones. All right, and so we're gonna get back to it. We still reading some of these different works from the digital scroll. Oh, I wasn't even sharing the screen the whole time. Oh my god, I thought I had shared the screen. Okay, so now I'm sharing the screen so you can see what I'm reading, and I'm gonna make it full. All right, so we're gonna look into another book on the list. Let's see if within this digital scroll I have my Cobran Bible. Yep, I do. Right here. I only have a video? No, that's something I wrote. Okay. All right. So we looking for another book in here to look into. Thank all y'all for watching. 1493. Let's read this for a second. Uncovering the new world Columbus created. This is like one of my first few times actually getting to go through this this list of books. It's a long list of books. I haven't really read much of these. Let's see, this says ancient civilizations. Let's see. The Aquarian Gospel of, let's see, Jesus Christ. I've heard of this. See, this is, a lot of people talk about this book. Some of this stuff is, you know, it's just here. Probably never read it. They got some wild books in here for real. But they do have some really good quality books. And let's see, Becoming Supernatural. I heard about this one on TikTok. Beelzebub and the tells his grandson Becoming Supernatural. All right, let's read Becoming Supernatural. A piece of this. All right, so this is by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Becoming Supernatural. How common people are doing the uncommon. Opening the door to the supernatural, the present moment, turning new potentials into quantum. So let's try chapter 1. Getting ready to become supernatural. Let's see. Opening the door to the supernatural. As spring was ending and the first glimpse of summer was approaching, What first appeared to be a typical Sunday afternoon in June 2007 turned out to be anything but typical for Anne Williams. The French doors, let me see. I'm gonna come back to this one. I want to read something, you can get into quick. Bloodlines of the Illuminati. An Illuminati Grandmaster once said, "The world is a stage and we are all actors." Of course, this was not an original thought, but it was certainly a way of describing the Illuminati view of the world works. The people of the world are an audience to which the Illuminati entertains with propaganda. Just one of the thousands of recent examples of this type of acting done to the public was President Bill Clinton's State of the Union address. It's giving family lineages. The founder of the Astor fortune was John Jacob Astor. Shit just died. One second, y'all. If y'all want me to send y'all this book, let me know. Send some emails below. Families of the world who are allied with the Illuminati. Who and what kind of family are allied with the top 13 Illuminati bloodlines? The Illuminati seeks to capture the occult power of powerful occult bloodlines across the world. They have intermarried with American Indians to gain spiritual power. Resident within the leading spiritual American Indian, various Indian reservations were used for Illuminati rituals. They have been doing this type of thing for thousands of years. Powerful families around the world participate on different levels with the Illuminati. Some participate on a business level, such as various crime type families around the world. Families might not subscribe to the occult philosophy, but they do recognize power in business. Some powerful families around the world participate simply on the level that they have been sucked into the world system and are dependent upon going along with the flow of the world system. As an example of the world would be the king of the Nepal. The king of Nepal rules over a poor Hindu kingdom. Let's see. And then it says the New World Order has the capacity to arrange. Okay. Wow, this is a deep book. Yeah. Let me know if y'all want me to send that to y'all. What up, Picasso? So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading, looking at some other books on here. I want to know what this is talking about. A major text for our time: pornography, possessing men and women with new introduction. Let's read this. This probably could be important. It's called Pornography Possessing Men and Women. Not two of us think alike about it, and yet it is clear to me. The question underlies the whole moment, and all our little skirmish for better laws and the right to vote would yet be swallowed up in the real question: has a woman right to herself? Is it very little to me to have the right to vote, to own property, if I may not keep my body and its uses and my body absolute right? Not one wife in 1,000 can do that now. Russian proverb. No, that was a letter. Lucy Stone. Let's see. Trouble walk in the long lines. Let's see. Sexual freedom then means the abolition of prostitution both in and out of marriage, means the emancipation of women from sexual slavery and her coming into ownership and control of her body, means the end of pecuniary dependency upon a man so that they may seemingly have the procure whatsoever desire. Okay. I was just kind of curious about what this book meant, had going on. I did not hesitate to let it be known that the white man who expected to succeed in whipping must also succeed in killing me. Let's see. Okay, let's see what this is talking about. This might be deep, y'all. Okay, we gonna read it. Okay. All right, let's talk about this. Fair use, fair use. Let's see. Always in the, let me see. Opposition. Where should I start at? I'm just gonna start at chapter 1 if I can. Scrolling down to chapter 1. This is the introduction. I wonder, is it gonna cut me off? It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. Okay, here we go. Finally, chapter 1. For freedom is always relative to power, and the kind of freedom which at any moment it is the most urgent to affirm depends on the nature of the power which is prevalent and established. The power of man is first a metaphysical assertion of self, and I am that exists, a priori, bedrock, absolute, no embellishment or apology required, indifferent to denial or challenge. It expresses intrinsic authority and never ceases to exist, no matter how or on what grounds it is attacked. And some assert that it survives physical death. This self is not merely subjectively felt, it is protected by laws and customs, proclaimed in art and literature, and documented in history, upheld in the tradition of wealth. This self cannot be eradicated or reduced to nothing. It is when the subjective sense of self falters. Institutions devoted to its maintenance buoy it up. The first tenet of a male supremacist ideology is that men have this self and that women must, by definition, lack it. Male self seems to be a contradiction. On the one hand, it hangs suspended in thin air. It is magically perpetual. It requires nothing to sustain it or support it. On the other hand, it is entitled to take what it wants to sustain or improve itself, to have anything, to require any need at any cost. In fact, there is no contradiction, just a simple circle. The nature of the male self is that it takes, so that by definition, the absolute self is expressed and the absolute right to take it what it needs to sustain itself. The immaculate, the immutable self of the male boils down to the utterly unself-conscious parasitism. The self is the conviction beyond reason of scrutiny, and that there is a equation between what one wants and the fact that one is. Going Descartes one better. The conviction might be expressed, I want, and I am entitled to have, therefore I am. Self is incrementally expanded as the parasite drains self from those who are not entitled to it. To him it is given by faith and action from birth. To her it is denied by faith and action from birth. It is never big enough. Hers is always too big, however small. As a child, the first self he drains is that of his mother. Whatever she has of it is reserved of him. He feeds of her labor and her qualities. He uses them up. She is devoted more or less, but the more it is as much an insult as the less. And nothing is ever enough unless it is too many, has been too many, too much. Let's get to the point. Come on. This one you're gonna have to sit down and read too, like kind of like a longer, don't get right into it. Okay, let's see what else we got in here. The Apocrypha. Are there black devils? I don't think y'all ready for that one. The Rights of Lucifer. Atlantis. The Book of Forbidden Knowledge. This is secrecy. This is the most dangerous book you will ever read in your hands. It is the book of secret rituals. The ceremonies are powerful beyond belief. This can be dangerous and tread lightly, but if directions faithfully followed, no harm. What the? Nah, I ain't gonna release this one to the public. Ritual imagination. Something else. Ba 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 ba. Mm, 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 mm. All right, I'm still looking for my next book that I want to get into. Like I said, some of these books are kind of deep. This one says a reconstruction. A history of forgotten books. Let's see. How'd it go back up? All right, y'all. I'm still looking for the next book. If y'all see something that y'all want me to read, let me know. I'm still going through the list. Put it on mute for a second. Thank y'all for sticking with me. Let me see if I got any comments on there. No, not yet. Columbus and other cannibals. Let's see. The coronavirus hoax. Last time it was some better books in here. They don't change them out. They add new ones. Let me see. It's some more. The Book of Mormon, Doctrine of Covenants. I want to see Enoch 23, 24. It got the keys to Enoch in here too somewhere. That's like $1,000 book. Evidence that Jesus existed. More than multidimensional self. Fallen angels. Free Negro owner. Free Negro owners of slaves in the U.S. Free Negro owners of slaves in the United States in 1830. I didn't mean to call you. All right, so we're going to keep looking. Let's see. This says the statistical report on the free Negro ownership of slaves was made possible in 1921 when the director of Association for the Study of Negro Life and History obtained from Laura Spelman Rockefeller Memorial an appropriation for the support of research into certain neglected aspects of Negro history. This special report, however, was not the objective of the research department of the association. It developed rather as a byproduct incompatible statistics for the much larger report of free Negro heads of families in the United States in the 1830s. The investigators found so many cases of Negroes owning slaves that it was decided to take special notice of this phase of the history of a free Negro. The report of the absentee ownership of slaves in the United States in 1830 attached hereto developed in a similar way. The investigators were impressed also with the frequent occurrence of such wide separation of the master from the slave. In noting the cases of free Negro ownership, it was simply a simple matter than to record also the cases of absentee ownership, and it was done accordingly. Carter G. Woodson. The aim of this report on the free Negro is to facilitate the further study of the neglected group. Most of these people have been forgotten, for persons supposedly well informed in history are surprised to learn today that about 500,000, almost 1/7 of the Negroes of this country were free prior to the emancipation in 1876. It is hardly believed that a considerable number of Negroes were owners of slaves themselves, and in some cases controlled large plantations. And there were several reasons for selecting the census of 1830. In the first place, several reports do not give as much information as the census of 1830. At the time, let's see, where was I at? Okay. Do not give us at the time. Moreover, the free Negroes had about reached their highest mark as a distinct class. The reaction which set in earlier in the century restricted their freedom and in many cases expelled them from the South. This census then evidently reports the names of a larger number of representative free Negroes than any other census prior to the debasement of the lower status or their migration from the South. This check reached its highest point between 1830 and 1835. Most of the free Negroes in the North in 1830 therefore had been there for some years. The census records show that majority of Negroes owners of slaves were such from the point of view, hold on one second, y'all, of philanthropy. In many instances, the husband purchased the wife or vice versa. The slaves belonging to such families were few compared with the large number found among the whites on the well-developed plantations. Slaves of Negroes were in some cases the children of a free father who had purchased his wife. Went down way too far. I think I pressed left. Damn. I gotta get back down where I was at. Let's see where I was at. What was I at? Because I was just reading and it just went to the next thing. It was just getting kind of good too. Yeah, I was right here. To this page. Okay, here we go. I apologize. I had pressed the wrong button and skipped out on the page. Okay, let me get back to what I was saying. So, yeah. Some of these husbands were not anxious to liberate their wives immediately. They considered it advisable to put them on probation for a few years, and if they did not find them satisfactory, they would sell their wives as other slaveholders disposed of Negroes. For example, a Negro shoemaker in Charleston, South Carolina, purchased his wife for $700, but on finding her hard to please, he sold her a few months hereafter for $750, gaining $50 by the transaction. The editor personally knew a man in Cumberland County, Virginia, whose mother was purchased by his father, who had first bought herself. Becoming enamored of the man's slave, she gave him her husband's manumission papers that they might escape together to free soil. Upon detecting this, of the law received the impression that her husband had turned over the papers to the slave and arrested the freed man for the supposed offense. He had such difficulty of extracting himself from this complication that his attorney fees amounted to $500. This is a lot of money even today. To pay them, he disposed of his faithless wife for that amount. Benevolent Negroes often purchase slaves to make their lot easier by granting them their freedom from a nominal sum, or by permitting them to work it out on liberal terms. John Berry Meacham, a Negro Baptist minister in St. Louis, thus came into possession of as many as 20 slaves in 1836. The exploitation type of Negro slaveholder, moreover, sometimes feeling the sting of conscience, liberated his slaves. Thus did Samuel Gibson, a Negro in Mississippi in 1844, when he bought his 6 slaves to Cincinnati, Ohio and settled them on free territory. Having economic interests in common with the white slaveholders, the Negro owners of slaves often enjoyed the same social standing. It was not exceptional for them to attend the same church, to educate their children in the same private school, and frequent the same places of amusement. Under such circumstances, miscegenation easily followed. While those taking the census in 1830 did not generally record such facts, the few who did, as the case in Nansemond County, Virginia, reported a situation which today will be considered alarming. In this particular county, there appeared among the slaveholders free Negroes designated as Jacob of Reed and, and white wife Steffi of Matthews and white wife. Others reported with white wives were not slaveholders. Practically all these Negro slaveholders were in the South. Slavery, however, at the time had not been exterminated altogether in the North, and even the Negro was following the footsteps of the white man, as this report will show. This is free Negro owners of slaves that I'm reading, everyone. If you happen to not know, free Negroes owners of slaves. Okay, let's see. In the South, where almost all the Negro slave holders were, moreover, we find some of them competing with the large planters and the number of slaves they owned. Most of such Negro proprietors lived in Louisiana, South Carolina, Maryland, and Virginia, as did the majority of such slave owners. There are, moreover, a few instances of confusing absentee ownership with Negro ownership. Sometimes a free Negro had charge of a plantation, but did not own slaves himself, and the enumerator returned him as the owner. That's not right. Excepting those of Louisiana, one may say that most of the Negro owners of slaves lived in urban communities in those parts of the South where the influence of the kind of planter near the coast was not felt. The Negro owner of slaves did not frequently appear. The free Negroes themselves, moreover, encountered such difficulties in the lower South and Southwest that they had to seek more hospitable communities in free states. By the 1840s, the trend toward degrading the free Negro to a lower status had become evident even in the apparently benevolent slaveholding states. Just before the outbreak of the Civil War, the free Negro was receiving practically no consideration in the South and very little in the North. His story here repeats itself, then in showing the varying attitude of the whites towards the blacks and the cycles of the national development. So let's see. These are some of the families. Slaves, how many slaves they had, their age. Okay. There's a lot of names in here. slaves, total slaves. Man, is that what the whole book is after the introduction? Let it load for a second. Oh man. Yeah. Okay, here we go. We're back into it. All right, here. Whew, that's a deep book right there. I'm not gonna hold you. Another deep one. I should still be live. All right. So let's get back to it. We can look at some more. Free your breath, free your life. This is by far. Still looking for our next book. Outside the circles of time. So I'm just looking through to find the next one to read. Got the Keys of Solomon. The sacred healing powers of This is called Shem. What? Oh, that's just a picture. One video. No, it's a picture. Let's read this. This is gonna be a good book right here. I'm already knowing. What y'all know about the Hyksos? Damn, spelled the name wrong. All right, so the Edom and the Hyksos. Discovery of a large Edomite empire. The enormous Hyksos Empire. The mysterious Hyksos, or shepherd kings of ancient Egypt, have long presented scholars with some of the greatest puzzles of history. They were foreigners, not Egyptians. They invaded the country. They reigned in that land of the Nile as pharaohs, seemingly out of nowhere, about 1700 years before Christ. A Hyksos king called Salatis with his people suddenly swarmed in on horseback across the eastern border of Lower Egypt. For a few generations, they vigorously ruled in the delta, part of the time dominating all of Egypt, taking to themselves all the titles of native pharaohs. They even adopt Egyptian ways, yet were never absorbed by or loved by the Egyptians. Indeed, the Egyptians seem to have hated them intensely. The Hyksos seem to hold away over an enormous ancient empire of which luxurious Egypt was but a part, until finally the Egyptians arose against their masters. Then, as suddenly as they mysteriously came, they equally mysteriously passed away, dropping completely out of sight altogether. Driven back out of Egypt, not very long before the birth of Moses, the Hyksos kings were the great with the great empire promptly fade and disappear, never to rise again. Yet, not another trace of these people has ever been identified. Where did these people go when they vanished in retreat? When Ahmose the first, the Egyptian king who founded the 18th dynasty, drove the Hyksos armies from his country soon after the 1580 BC, the enemy retreated not only to southern Palestine, but retreated out of history itself. The great empire became a forgotten empire, unrecorded and preserved history. The new Until the new science of archaeology began piecing together the exciting bits of evidence dug up here and there. Not one has yet succeeded in tracing their retreat any further. Who were these people? Many speculations and suggestions have been made. One suggested Kadesh and some other city in Syria as their home. Some have looked up Palestine itself. Others tried to link them with the Hittites of Asia Minor. For a little, as it was speculized, they were Hurrians, and some original home beyond the Caucasus was proposed. Still another connects them with early Hebrews, relatives of the Israelites. It is all very uncertain. The Hyksos remain an enigma and an unsolved riddle to this day. Our proposal is that a clue of the origin of the Hyksos kings and people may be found through the pages of the profound ancient book, the Bible. Too often, the earlier portion of the Bible has been viewed only as a myth, legend, and folklore. It is looked upon as a literary product of a small, rather insignificant Hebrew tribe, which, after a lot of wandering around, ended up in Palestine hills, a tiny nation which happened to possess some of the great sublime ideals of the Creator and evolved an excellent monotheism. Let's see. In the book of Origins, the book of Genesis, is often considered a quite fantastic and unreliable as a source of historical fact, but surely writers capable of the sublime spiritual concepts and keen observers of nature about them. Really horribly. Let's see. It is unfortunate that the monuments of the Hyksos kings of Egypt have been wholly lost. Such monuments would no doubt have supplied the key to the information we now seek. Interesting. Who were the Hyksos kings? Quite interesting. What do you think, chat? Who were the Hyksos kings? Dun, 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 dun. The laws of the spirit world. Go ahead and download that. That's fine. Oh. Well, let's see if I got the energy to read this book. I read this book bar for bar, word for word. Let's see. It's the Coburn Bible. I'm gonna read part of it for y'all. Let's see. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back. You know, we've been on for an hour. I'm gonna have to come back. And thank y'all for viewing the video. I'm gonna repost it so you can come back and look at the